Now, it's difficult for even the most ardent monarchist not to feel a slight tinge of republicanism today after hearing that the former Prime Minister Scott Morrison was sworn in by Governor-General David Hurley as the Health, Finance and Resources Minister in early 2020, while other MPs in his government also held those positions. This was done in secret, not only from the public, but from the ministers themselves. This is the strangest constitutional controversy since the sacking of the Whitlam government in 1975. Why was the Prime Minister secretly awarding ministerial powers to himself, and why was the Governor-General going along with it? Some Canberra commentators are saying that Morrison was trying to protect himself against factionalism within his own government, which is clearly not going to pass the pub test. Others say no harm was done because he was only assuming those powers in preparation for an unprecedented pandemic. Again, this doesn't bear scrutiny. One of those ministers, Keith Pitt, discovered Morrison had assumed his portfolio of resources when Morrison arbitrarily cancelled Asset Energy's application to continue its licence to explore for gas off the coast between Sydney and Newcastle. This is hardly related to the pandemic, but it is related to Morrison's campaign to have his government re-elected in May this year. You will recall we covered the Asset Energy story last week. The licence was kiboshed by Morrison, a move that his rival Anthony Albanese unequivocally agreed with early this year because the voters in the adjacent swinging seats were adamantly opposed to the proposal. They were opposed on two grounds: that a leak from the well, which is to say a leak of gas, would spoil their precious beaches, and that the well rig would be an eyesore, ruining some of the most expensive coastal views in Australia. Now, that opposition has come back to bite them because Anthony Albanese's incoming Labor government is instead proposing a forest of 200 windmills just off the beach at Newcastle, which would make the silhouette of a single distant gas rig look like a JMW Turner seascape. We are, by the way, grateful to the Sydney Morning Herald and the Australian for following up our coverage of this issue last week. This is a story that has a bit of everything, and to make sense of it all, let's bring in Stephen Cenatiempo, the excellent host of The Breakfast Shift on Canberra's 2CC and one of the plainest speaking commentators in the country. Stephen, welcome back to ADH.
Good to be with you, Fred.
Stephen, first, let's talk about this revelation about Morrison serving himself up ministerial portfolios, which was authorised by the Governor-General. Do you think this has boosted the Republican movement?
Look, I'm not 100% sure about that. Look, apart from the Keith Pitt situation, I actually think it's all a bit of a beat-up. I think it's a distraction. The current government is using this as the news story of the day, and they haven't been talking about anything else whatsoever. It's almost like, whatever you do, don't mention the economy. Let's try and look at the previous government. I think I understand what Morrison thought he was trying to do with the health portfolio and maybe the finance portfolio. But the Keith Pitt situation with the resources was a dead set stitch up to try and save a few of his factional mates on those seats up there on the Central Coast and closer to Newcastle. There's no two ways about that. But as far as being a constitutional crisis, I don't think it is. I've spoken to a few people with a little bit more knowledge about the Constitution than I have, and they seem to think that there is actually nothing untoward here. It might be unusual, but not inappropriate, for lack of a better way of putting it.